think it was being published in the February of a couple of years ago, I guess now, right? And then I was given it, I think, in January to read, and then I read it in January, I think, and then I talked to Cillian about it, and then I sat down in March of whatever year, sorry, and then I just wrote it over, like, you know, it took like a couple of months or 2-3 months or something like that. I absolutely adore the book, absolutely so incredibly moved by it, and yeah, wanted to be involved straight away for many reasons.
Wow. And then getting Tim on board, you know, when did you come on board?
I think me and Cillian expressed the desire to work again, and I think then Cillian's wife came up with the book. She said, like, you should read this. And then I read it, and I felt I'm immediately attached to the grief process as a foreigner, not knowing Ireland very well, but like the grief of the little boy felt like the engine of the story. And I was personally related because I experienced something very similar in my life. So I felt like this is something I want to spend 2 years of my life digging deeper into, understanding this boy and this man. And then I think Cillian asked you to write on it. And that's how we came together.
Wow. And obviously Cillian, long-term friend and collaborator. How nice is it working together, you know, officially? And kind of how have you seen him change as a person and a performer since you first started working together?
Well, I've always really, I mean, I've known him since he was 19, and Eileen, I think, is a year younger, probably 18, something like that. So I've known them, a long time, but nothing really has sort of changed in that way. He was always, I always sort of say of Cillian that he doesn't like to leave things general. He sort of, everything needs to be sort of like, you know, answered. And that makes him sound like an absolute pain in the arse. but he's not. He's sort of like, he's so good with it and sort of positive and funny with the work, but thorough, like really thorough. And yeah, he's sort of like very sort of instinctive for all the sort of learning and great sort of intelligence that he has. So he's a terrific collaborator. I think he's become a better actor. I think as he's getting older and older, he seems to be. My experience of it and working in theatre is that, like, every time we make a piece, I go, oh my God, he's actually better than before. And then when I can see him in his film work, I think years of actually sort of 10 years, whatever, doing Peaky Blinders also, it's just like you really honing your sort of craft. And he's just, it's that, I think he's, you know, he's a great actor.
Exactly. And yeah, Tim, obviously you've worked with him with Peaky Blinders. Yeah, it must be incredibly satisfying to be sitting behind the camera, kind of watching his performances come to life. And how different is it working on something like Peaky to this with him?
Yeah, and I just finished another one. We just finished another one, Steve. He's, what's it like? He's this few actors who inspires you. Who, like, if you see him in front of the camera, you get new ideas. Like, and then I give my idea and he get another idea, and then you see like it evolving all the time. But it's like, yeah, it's wonderful. You don't come across actors who really inspire you. Like,
I think he's very excited by the work. He's sort of, as much as sort of like he's got his job to do, it's actually making sure that everyone is really doing their job. But there's that incredible positive sort of like nature to him, which is great.
Yeah, I think the analogy of playing music together. I think we are both failed musicians, so we all so we feel like, okay, this is the moment, like getting in a room, and I think you experience as well in theatre, but it's like having Cillian there, it's like, come, let's do this together. Let's work on it. And the excitement all the time. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's nice. That kind of touches on what I was going to ask you. You know, what kind of atmosphere do you like to create on your sets, and how do you go about it?
An atmosphere where you can make mistakes, and you don't have to worry about making mistakes. So it's quite healthy because I can make mistakes as well. And it's like, let's try things out and let's work on it, but let's push it forward.
Yeah, I think sort of some people, when they like to work, have that sort of sense that actually they know what they're doing, and people get behind that, and then they sort of produce what they're doing. But there is something about actually not knowing, the strength of not knowing, or leaving the door open to sort of conversation or whatever is just, well, it takes confidence to do that.
Yeah, I think certainly here was quite important because I think it's a very quiet movie, but I think internally it's very loud. And I think we have to fill up these silent moments with a lot of interesting thoughts. And I think what I remember is one of my favorite moments making this movie is just you, me, and Cillian in a room for 2 days. Remember?
Yeah.
And I just and I shared all my ideas, and then you your ideas, and then we came really together. It was like a beautiful triangle, and I still treasure those moments.
Oh, so nice. And I don't know if this is a kind of correct analogy of what I thought, but it sort of turns gender stereotypes on its head, particularly with the Eileen and Bill relationship. You know, she's the one saying about the alcoholic in town, oh, he just needs to pull himself together. And it's actually Bill that's recognising the sort of maybe mental health situation of that and saying, you know, he might be trying. Was that, you know, to what extent was that something you were exploring, or was that something?
It's all Clare. It's all there in the book. I mean, I think she's, I don't know anything about Clare as a person or the men in her lives or whatever. She writes people just really deep way, understands them deeply, but I think she understands men very well, and quiet men. And I think it's sort of like she completely.
Yeah, and it's very healthy, I think, these days to put a non-toxic non-macho man at the front and center.
Absolutely, that definitely came across. It's a pleasure to see. And similarly, Bill is told to do the sensible thing. You know, the nuns have got their fingers on all the pies, and not to rock the boat and just take care of his family. As a viewer, I found myself very challenged as to what he could do and what should he do. How important was that in the storytelling?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, well, for me, hugely important. I mean, it's important to sort of like to be aware as a person that you've got agency, that you can sort of affect change, that you can do something. If you believe in something that's upsetting you, that you can sort of stand up and you can call it out. And I think she gets that so well in the book, and I think the guys have just nailed it in the film, that sense of quiet, constant oppression, and that thing of like being unable to sort of like look away anymore, and to call out sort of like an injustice, you know.
Yeah, for me it was kind of an antidote of a movie I just finished, set in World War II, trying to understand people who were complicit, with a question like, you get 2 children, what would you do? Would you risk? Mm-hmm. What would you risk for it? Like, ask yourself that question a couple of times, which is very difficult. And then coming here and then finding the other side of the coin was really healthy.
Yeah, and the film, you know, is dedicated to more than 10,000 women who were sent to these institutions, and the children taken from them. And we've seen films like this and stories like this on screen before. But you know, how important is it to keep telling these stories? And perhaps for you, and how aware were you of them, kind of growing up?
Oh, I was aware of it because I was a teenager in the 80s when all these sort of secrets were coming out, and all of that. It's hugely important, of course. It's sort of, I think, stories sort of like this, or thinking about them, or sort of placing them in context. I mean, they trying to sort of understand how human nature can sort of end up doing these things, and why are they doing it? Like, why are they sort of choosing to sort of oppress these young women and lock them up and treat them in this way? You know, what are they trying to sort of, what are they trying to do? They're trying to sort of like create sort of society into this sort of hierarchical sort of, sort of things, and place these sort of women at the back. Why do people do that to themselves? And telling stories about like this, and it's bad. I mean, we have it now, like in terms of our treatment of immigrants, or sort of people who are sort of, who are looking for asylum, or the trans community, or whatever it is, or various sort of ethnic groups, or women in America in certain states, their health of calling out things and going, like, what are we doing to one another? Or like, why are we doing it? And I think Ireland have sort of like gone a lot of way to sort of try to understand that. But it's not just the church and it's not just this government, it's the complicity of the people, of the whole population to that. That's a trickier thing to try and remember. Like, what is it in our personalities, in our psyche, in our history that have made people go, to get ahead in life, it's better to sort of stand on these people as opposed to lift them up. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of that, and those questions are constant, you know, forever.
Yeah, and direct danger of autocracies that might come up. I think there's and everywhere in the world. I think where I come from, Flanders, I think we get similar stories of we experienced many years of Roman Catholic Church dominance, and we get very horrible stories facing the light these days. We can't address that, but I think there's an analogy to autocracies. If you can't say anything about it, or you risk your own life or your life of your family, we're in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Thank you both. A pleasure to talk to you.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!